too late. It's already done.
You have slit your wrist?
Oh, yeah. I split every up and down, my neck, everything. And my 3 kids are dead.
A troubled mother of 3 goes on a brutal rampage, unleashing unimaginable evil upon her loved ones. Her boyfriend receives a shocking call informing him that their 3 children are dead. The family's buried secrets begin to surface, revealing a motive rooted in jealousy and betrayal. The family consisted of Jessica McCarty, 33, her children Lacey, 7, and Philip, 6. Jessica's past was tumultuous, and they had been living in a friendly neighborhood for 8 months. Jessica was a stay-at-home mom, while Christopher worked as a quality assurance manager. On the fateful day of March 20th, 2015, the family woke up as usual. Jessica took the children to school and later spent time with her mother. In the evening, Jessica made a haunting phone call to Christopher, revealing the children's deaths. He rushed home and discovered the horrifying scene, with bloodstains on the kitchen floor. The mother was found holding a knife, and the children were found in various states of harm. Christopher acted quickly to disarm Jessica and desperately sought help for the children. Tragically, the children were clinging to life, but their conditions were dire. After rushing outside with the injured child, Chris desperately performed CPR while dialing 911 once again. The police quickly arrive and encounter a distraught Jessica, who is armed with knives. Using a beanbag shotgun, the officers manage to subdue her and confiscate the weapons. Inside the house, officers discover a horrifying scene. The living room is covered in blood, with the disturbing movie Marley and Me playing on the TV. The kitchen is equally shocking, with bloodstains on the floor, table, cabinets, and drawers. The bathroom shows signs of violence, with shattered glass and a bathtub filled with water. In Christopher's room, a trail of blood leads to the crib. Outside, on the dashboard of Jessica's vehicle, a chilling note is found, indicating her intent to commit heinous acts. As Jessica and her children are rushed to the hospital, the gravity of the situation becomes apparent. Lacey and her mother are taken to Holmes Regional Medical Center, where Lacey tragically passes away. Philip and Christopher are initially taken to Palm Bay Community Hospital, but are later transferred to Florida Hospital for Children. Unfortunately, Philip goes into cardiac arrest and dies en route to the hospital. Baby Christopher remains in critical condition, fighting for his life. Autopsy results reveal the extent of Lacey's injuries, indicating a struggle, and confirm her cause of death as drowning and strangulation. Philip's cause of death is determined to be ligature strangulation. The devastating question remains: how could a parent harm their own children? Jessica, described as a devoted mother, had a hidden darker side. Detectives try to understand the tragedy as they question Jessica about her relationship with Christopher and her struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder. The troubled relationship between Jessica and Chris becomes apparent, and the true extent of their turbulent issues will soon be revealed. Jessica briefly recounts the events leading up to that fateful Friday, explaining that they returned home after the children's baseball game and went to bed. However, the night didn't end peacefully, as a fight erupted between them. Through the investigation, the truth behind their argument will unfold. Jessica expresses her anguish over Chris telling her the previous night that he didn't want to be with her anymore. She shares her confusion and desperation to understand why he claimed to love her while denying a future together. This ongoing argument had been brewing for days, if not longer. Jessica's love for Chris is evident, but it seems that he doesn't reciprocate those feelings. The interview sheds light on their most recent dispute, which occurred earlier on that Friday. Chris informed Jessica of his plans to play baseball, but she wanted him to watch the kids so she could go out with a friend. This led to a heated exchange of text messages, with both expressing their frustrations and hurt. The conversation continued, with Chris expressing his need for a break, and Jessica canceling her plans for the night, intensifying the conflict. Chris attempted to defuse the situation, suggesting they have a fun weekend, but Jessica felt isolated and claimed she had no friends. Money became another point of contention, with Chris questioning her source of funds for going out. The next significant interaction between Chris and Jessica was a chilling phone call. Jessica claims that she doesn't remember what happened or why she did what she did to the children. She recalls seeing Philip lying on the floor and Chris carrying the baby out of the bedroom when he arrived. Jessica admits to moving Philip but denies attempting CPR. She states that she knew the other 2 children were in the room but didn't want to see them. When asked about the baby, she doesn't remember hurting him and expresses her love for him. Jessica's memory is fragmented and uncertain throughout the interview. She denies using a charger cord on the baby or harming him intentionally. She mentions her shock and confusion about the situation and her inability to understand how it happened. The investigation reveals that Jessica had a troubled past, including substance abuse and encounters with the law. Her mother suggests that she may have had an undiagnosed mental disorder, possibly borderline personality disorder rather than bipolar disorder. Jessica's emotional instability seemed to be triggered by conflicts in her life. Jessica has a history of drug use, including Xanax and oxycodone, which resulted in her being incarcerated for 3 months about a year ago. She had stolen prescription scripts from the doctor's office where she worked and was taking and selling them. Additionally, she had previously stolen a credit card and made fraudulent purchases, leading to legal consequences. Her substance abuse issues and legal troubles align with the impulsive behavior often seen in individuals with borderline personality disorder. According to Philip, her estranged husband Jessica had also struggled with postpartum depression after the birth of their last baby due to complications from a C-section. She experienced physical complications, infections, and extended hospital stays, leading to exhaustion and inability to care for the baby. However, her struggles were not directly linked to the baby, but rather the medical complications. Jessica received mental health care at Circle of Care, but it becomes evident that she may have harbored disturbing thoughts about hurting others. She mentions being impulsive and having diagnoses of bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder. However, it's important to note that while individuals with borderline personality disorder can exhibit impulsive behavior and anger control issues, it is not typically associated with serious violence or murder. The detective continues to question Jessica about the events leading up to the incident, trying to understand the triggers and conversations with Christopher. They urge her to remember what happened to the children so that appropriate care can be provided to them. Jessica struggles to recall specific details and claims she cannot remember holding a knife when the police arrived. The detective inquires if Jessica was instructed to drop the knife, to which she responds affirmatively. However, she admits that she didn't drop the knife because she wanted the police to shoot her. The detective tries to calm her and urges her to remember as much as possible about what happened to the children. Jessica insists that she won't remember and expresses her devastation over her daughter's death. The detective continues to engage with Jessica, attempting to guide her through the process of recalling the events. Jessica becomes defensive, feeling condescended to, but the detective emphasizes that only she and the children were present in the house. Jessica admits to doing it but claims she doesn't know how or why, asserting her love for her children and her role as a caring mother. The detective acknowledges the immense challenges Jessica faced, such as her husband leaving, the newborn baby, complications from a C-section, and lack of support. Despite this, Jessica vehemently denies hurting her children. The detective suggests resting and returning the next day to potentially remember more, but Jessica is uncertain. Dissociation, a common symptom of borderline personality disorder, may contribute to her difficulty in recalling the events. The detective focuses on Lacey, asking if Jessica remembers doing anything specifically to her. Jessica recalls talking to Lacey on her bed and sensing fear but can't remember anything else. The detective questions if the tragedy could have been avoided had Christopher not made the comment about not wanting the older children at the house, but Jessica states it wouldn't have made a difference. She remains uncertain about why it happened and expresses confusion and disbelief about her actions. The interview concludes with the detective advising Jessica to rest before further discussions. On March 21st, Jessica declines the offer for a lawyer and agrees to talk with the detectives. However, she claims there's nothing more she can tell them that she didn't already share the previous day. The detectives shift their focus to the note found in Jessica's car and inquire about her mother's visit on the day of the incident. Patricia had picked up the kids from school as usual, but upon entering the house she noticed Jessica sitting in a recliner, writing in a notebook. Patricia asked Jessica what she was writing, and Jessica mentioned it was like a letter but didn't allow her mother to read it. Jessica appeared sad, but there were no visible signs of stress. Patricia offered to take the kids home, but Jessica insisted on keeping them for company. The timing of Jessica writing the note suggests premeditation, indicating that her actions may not have been impulsive. The detectives continue to seek understanding and ask Jessica about her conversation with her mother after the incident. Jessica recalls her mother's phone call, where she apologized and mentioned doing something horrible. However, Jessica denies telling her mother that she felt like taking her children's lives. though she admits to expressing an understanding of why some parents might resort to such actions. Frustrated, Jessica states she's done answering questions and requests more information about her family. The authorities spoke with Philip on the previous day, and he appeared deeply distressed. He acknowledged the challenges Jessica faced during her upbringing, but expressed the belief that if someone doesn't actively support and spend time with their children, it shouldn't have been as difficult for him. He also carried a sense of guilt for not being present in their lives. Unfortunately, Jessica couldn't provide any further significant information during the interview, leading to its conclusion. Tragically, on March 22nd, 5-month-old Christopher was declared deceased at 7:12 p.m. due to ligature strangulation. The following day, March 23rd, Jessica was requested to provide a DNA sample through a cheek swab, aiming to distinguish her blood from others found in the household. Overwhelmed by grief, Jessica broke down and wept before complying with the request. Within the Palm Bay community, the search for answers continued as the community mourned. 2 key individuals remained to be interviewed: Philip, Jessica's estranged husband, and Chris, her boyfriend. In the days that followed, both would have the opportunity to sit down with the authorities, shedding new light on the investigation and revealing a multitude of secrets. The objective was to gather facts and seek justice for the children, rather than assigning blame or condemning Jessica. Beginning with Philip, the authorities inquired about the duration of time he had noticed any signs of mental issues in Jessica. Philip vaguely recollected that prior to the birth of their children, Jessica had mentioned having troubling thoughts, including thoughts of harming the children. These thoughts suggested the possibility of postpartum depression, and considering Jessica's history of serious mental health issues and multiple childbirth experiences, it was likely that she had been grappling with postpartum depression for an extended period. The conversation with Philip revealed that Jessica had been exhibiting concerning symptoms long before the tragic events occurred. While postpartum depression is commonly associated with the first few weeks after childbirth, it can manifest at any time within the first year. Symptoms may include emotional, behavioral, and cognitive changes, as well as potential accompanying psychosis, such as impaired thinking, delusions, irritability, paranoia, and rapid mood swings. Philip expressed his disbelief and questioned how, despite these difficulties, they were still together all those years ago. He emphasized their deep love for their children and how they were the center of their lives, receiving utmost care and support. Weeks prior to the tragic incident, Jessica's younger brother, Jim Knoll, visited her home to address unrelated family issues that had caused tension. Allegedly, 6-year-old Philip was present during the argument. However, Jim claimed that he and Jessica resolved the dispute through a heart-to-heart conversation, seemingly resolving the conflict. Unfortunately, it appears that Jessica's disturbing thoughts persisted, overshadowing any resolution achieved during the conversation. Concerns regarding Lacey's behavior at school emerged, suggesting that Jessica had expressed worries about her daughter's actions mirroring a difficult time she herself had experienced in her youth. The last time Philip had spoken to the doctor was on December 12th or 13th, during which financial difficulties were discussed, including child support payments. Philip had been providing some financial assistance, but it wasn't sufficient to alleviate Jessica's immediate financial struggles. Following their separation, Jessica faced challenges, including a drug conviction and financial instability. She worked as a fry cook, earning a meager income, and relied on Philip for additional financial support. Eventually, she entered a new relationship with Chris, and Philip noted that Jessica would often make comments expressing her dissatisfaction with their situation and mentioning her deceased child. Philip's account raised doubts about Jessica's claims of not remembering the murders. Detectives began to question the veracity of her statements, including her supposed lack of awareness of the events. The inconsistencies in Jessica's narrative, along with Philip's revelations, prompted the authorities to reevaluate everything they had been told. Despite the difficulties within their relationship, Philip spoke highly of Jessica's qualities as a mother, describing her as an incredibly caring and devoted parent. He attested to her exceptional abilities in providing for their children, stating that she was among the top 3 mothers he had ever witnessed, including her own mother and his own. Philip believed that Jessica was a remarkable provider for their children, which was one of the reasons he had been with her. The speaker had a connection to Jessica's children through their aunt and uncle, who were Chris's parents. They developed a fondness for Lacey when she was around 2.5 years old, and they met PJ, also known as Smash, at the Super Bowl when the Giants won. Like any relationship, Chris and Jessica had their disagreements. However, a year prior to the tragic incident, Suspicions arose when Jessica posted on Facebook about their family dog, expressing a desire to find it a new home. The timing of the dog's sudden death raised concerns among friends and family, suggesting a potential link to Jessica's capability for violence. Another source of tension between Chris and Jessica was her ongoing struggle with postpartum depression following the birth of Christopher. In a text message to Chris, she vented her frustration, expressing a threat to harm the children if they made another sound. Adding to their relationship woes, Jessica discovered flirtatious messages between Chris and his coworker Brandy Buckley on his phone. Though Brandy insisted it was harmless, Jessica's anger intensified. She allegedly used fake numbers from various apps to send threatening texts to Brandy, even claiming to possess incriminating evidence. Chris initially doubted that the messages came from Jessica, but when Brandy informed him about the distressing texts, he realized the seriousness of the situation. Brandy was forced to change her number due to the continuous threats. Evidence of Jessica's animosity toward Brandy can be seen in recovered messages exchanged between Heather Reimler, Chris's supervisor, and Jessica. These messages reveal Jessica's deep-seated resentment. On February 25th, Jessica sent a message to Heather, stating that she was interested in finding a job and requested that Brandy not be present if she were to be hired. Heather responded politely, mentioning that she would keep it in mind but expressed her hesitation in hiring Jessica, since Chris already worked for the company. Less than a month later, Jessica reached out to Heather again, this time with a different request. On March 19th, she asked Heather to call her while keeping it a secret from Chris, claiming that she had important information to share. Heather, feeling uneasy about the situation, responded that she was busy but assured Jessica that she wouldn't mention their conversation to Chris. Jessica persisted, stating that she couldn't hold it in anymore and wanted to talk. They eventually had a phone call where Jessica disclosed alleged Facebook messages between Chris and Brandy, in which they referred to Heather inappropriately while discussing their problems with her. Jessica seemed determined to have both Chris and Brandy face consequences for their actions. Heather also mentioned hearing an argument between Jessica and Chris on the morning before the incident, but the details of their disagreement were not specified. The night prior, a heated conflict had erupted between Jessica and Chris regarding the washer and dryer situation. Brandy had temporarily loaned them her own machines, but Jessica was dissatisfied and had posted on Facebook claiming that the ones provided by Brandy were not working. The argument escalated into a discussion about their relationship, and Chris mentioned that they had considered ending things but agreed to revisit the topic later. Little did Chris know that the next day would bring a devastating turn of events. When Chris arrived at Jessica's home, he didn't believe her when she said the kids were at their grandmother's. He assumed the worst-case scenario might involve harm to their dog. He had never imagined that something had happened to the children. As he approached the door, he found it unlocked, and Jessica was standing just a few feet inside. She was holding a butcher knife in her right hand, but Chris disarmed her by grabbing the knife and throwing it aside. He then asked about the children's whereabouts, seeking confirmation that they were safe. Chris recounts the harrowing experience he had upon arriving at the house. As he hurriedly carried his body, Jessica tried to stop him from going out the front door, expressing concern about her mother seeing the scene. Fearing for his safety, Chris assumed there must be someone hiding in the laundry room or garage ready to attack him. With Christopher in his left arm, he ran through the garage only to find no one there. Chris quickly got into his truck, parked with the passenger side blocking his mother's view. Overwhelmed by the situation, he hoped for a swift end to the horror. Chris firmly believes that Jessica was suffering from a mental illness, and he attributes her actions to this condition. He describes her behavior as something he couldn't comprehend at the time. He mentions the recorded phone calls he received and hopes they will shed light on Jessica's state of mind, as her voice on those calls was not the same as the person he saw when he entered the house. The letter left behind by Jessica further reveals the depth of her anguish. She apologizes to her family, expressing love for them and acknowledging the pain she caused. In a section addressed to Chris, she confesses her love for him and mentions her regrets about not being like Brandy, while also alluding to his supposed dislike for Lacey. The letter takes a chilling turn as Jessica expresses her belief in her worthlessness and her inability to live without her children, blaming Chris for destroying their family. In December of 2015, Jessica pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, avoiding the death penalty but receiving a life sentence. The motive behind her heinous act remains a mystery, leaving everyone perplexed and horrified by one of the nation's most shocking crimes.